Okay, and this is the fifth of the five C's in the Guild Wealth Network and the Guild Global Investment Leaders Directive. And this to me is really the most important part of it. And it's the opportunity, I think, to get ahead of what is going on in most of finance, because most of finance is very transactional in nature. It's very much kind of this idea of dog eat dog, it's eat or be eaten. Um, and that's kind of how the sort of the Wall Street mentality has evolved. And yet, in my experience, the people that actually do the best are ones that are always thinking about how they can create value for others, and how they can build wealth over the long term rather than the very, very short term focus of typical finance. So if you think about Wall Street, for an example, everything on Wall Street is done in 90 days. So the next results come out every 90 days. So everyone is always thinking, and there's surveys come out all the time. Directors freely admit to sacrificing long-term value creation for short-term shareholder gain. And that's kind of because that's what they're incentivized to do. If you look at Silicon Valley as an example, nobody's talking about creating long-term companies. They're always talking about growth. It's always how quickly can we get from Series A to Series B? How quickly can we get from Series B to Series C? And nobody's actually thinking about longevity. And yet, ultimately, the biggest wealth that you will create is going to come from your network around you. So the whole idea about continue is just that regardless of the deals that we're doing, we want to continue the relationships. So even if a deal goes wrong, if you're trustworthy, if you're open, if you're transparent, if you communicate well, you can maintain the relationship. And it's much more important to maintain the relationship. Sometimes you even let deals go because it's more important to maintain the relationship. And if we go back to this, the original idea of Elon Musk being able to get Larry Ellison to give him 2 billion over a text message, that came about because there's a trusted relationship. Elon has a habit of delivering, and Larry Ellison knows him, trusts him, and is willing to make a $2 billion commitment over text message. So, what we want to do is be thinking when we're meeting people in our networks, and when we invite people into our networks, you might not always be able to see what the immediate opportunity is. And what I talk about in the book, Progressive Partnerships, is if you meet somebody, say you're looking for an angel investor, for example, and you meet somebody and they're not an angel investor, it's very easy to kind of make a decision, well, you're of no value to me right now, and move on. But everybody that you meet is also connected to lots of other people, on average 200 other people. So you're building relationship not just with them, but with their network as well. And you're also building it through time. So who are the people that they've known over the last 10 years? Who are the people that they're going to know over the next 10 years? Now, obviously, time is limited. We can't become best friends with everybody we know just on the off chance that they're going to become super successful in the future. And so that's the whole idea about building a network is you create a device which allows people to stay in your network, but without it taking up too much time for you. So if you put together, for example, a monthly networking event for investors, then even if you meet somebody that doesn't seem like a good fit right now, let's say they come to 3 or 4 of your events over the next 12 months, it's a very easy way for you to stay in touch with them. You have a 5-minute conversation with them at each event. The other one that is particularly effective for this is newsletters. So if you meet somebody, they're interested in investing, they're not a good fit for you right now, but you add them to your newsletter list. And then once a month, you just push out an email to everybody you've met saying, hey, these are some interesting deals that are going on right now. Here's some cool stuff that I'm doing. Here's some interesting people that I've met. That just keeps them in your network. It's low effort on your side, but very, very high return in terms of keeping people feeling like they're in your network and part of something special. So focus on the long term rather than the short term. Um, not every deal is going to work out. And I keep coming back to this because human nature being what it is, you're going to come across way more deals than are actually going to close. And so, um, part of the way that you can make this work for you is to have multiple deals on the go at any one time. And we'll come back to that. But um, the most important thing is to keep the relationship. What you don't want to be doing is a deal goes bad or a deal doesn't happen, and you've put so much effort into it, and you've tried to maybe coerce other people into getting involved in the deal, and then you burn the relationship because the deal doesn't happen. So always assume that a deal might go south, but try and make sure that the relationship survives that. Not everyone will, but if you start with the idea of, hey, I want to keep this relationship, regardless of whether this deal happens or not, always a good way to go into a relationship. Don't ghost investors when things goes wrong. Goes wrong. Like this is something that you will as you play in this game, you will see this happen time and time again. I was going to say especially startups, but I think across the whole board, this tends to happen. So, but as an example, like a startup might raise money. Uh, it's all based on how amazing the company is going to be. And then 3 months later or 6 months later, nothing's working out how they planned. And rather than communicate with their investors and say, hey, look, this isn't working out how we planned, they feel guilty. And so they just shut down. They don't communicate with their investors. It's the worst thing that you can do. Investors would rather know that you're honest with them, that you're straight with them, let them know what's going on. So never ghost investors when things go wrong. Now, this is something that's kind of important for the Guild network is your job isn't to predict which deals are going to be winners. Your job is to build a network of investors. Some of those investors might be interested in deals that you're not interested in. So I've mentioned this before. I was very early on in Twitter's lifespan when I think it was still 140 characters, allowing for the headers for SMSs. And at the time, conventional wisdom was that a blog should be 2,000 to 3,000 words. The idea of writing 140 message character blog just seemed ridiculous to me. So I would never have invested in Twitter. Even sillier than that was the idea of letting strangers come and sit on my sofa or sleep on my sofa. It was just so bizarre to me. Now, if I'd had those opportunities and I'd had that mindset of these are stupid deals, I would never have passed them on to my network. And I would have been very wrong, and my network would have been very annoyed with me for withholding those. So, your job is not to be the gatekeeper. Your job is to share these deals amongst the right people, the people that might be interested in them. But feel free to like caveat it, say, hey, look, this isn't, I can't see the value in this, but I know this is the sort of deal that you like. And that's basically what you're trying to be known for. You're trying to become known as somebody that gets access to interesting deals. And that's why investors want to be in your network. And again, it kind of spirals up from that. This is kind of the opposite of that, which is when you do think a deal is going to be great. And this is especially a problem when it's your own deal. So if you're trying to raise money for your own company, um, obviously we always think our company is going to be great. And so we can we can get this kind of one-itis. We can get very, very focused on this one deal. Now there's a time and a place for that, but it makes it very difficult to be genuinely interested in creating a relationship regardless of an investment. Um, and so in dating, this idea of one-itis is when you sort of become obsessed with a girl or a boy, and you end up driving them away because you're so obsessed with trying to make everything perfect. So the same thing happens in deals. It's much more attractive to an investor if you've got multiple deals on the go, and it allows you to be much more circumspect. It allows you to have much more perspective over the likelihood of a deal working versus not working. What you don't want to do, the absolute worst scenario to be in, is when you're needy for a deal to happen. And I'm sure we've all met needy people. Um, it's yeah, it repulses the very people that we want to help. So never ever get needy about a deal. It doesn't matter how desperate you are to make money. Don't let other people realize that you're desperate, because it's the least attractive way to do it. Now, having said that, if you do have a deal that you genuinely believe in, that you genuinely think somebody should be invested in, be willing to fight for that deal. Be willing to, people are busy. People often need to hear an idea several times before it lands. Sometimes they will hear the idea, they're not really taken for it. But if you can bring in two or three other investors and then go back to them, now they hear that two or three other investors are involved, they'll take a look at it with a fresh set of eyes. So if there's a really good deal, then like be willing to fight for it. But there's a big difference between you being passionate and going after that deal and becoming needy and desperate. So it's a fine line, but make sure you don't cross that line. Ultimately, what this is about is building your wealth network. Now, I came across this idea. I think I talk about it in the book Progressive Partnerships. So I came across this idea that every successful person has two things. They have a wealth network and they have a wealth mindset. And a wealth mindset basically is your ability to look at any opportunity, any challenge, any situation, and see how you can create wealth from it. You can see the opportunity to make money. Wherever there's a differential, you can do that. Now, I remember when I came across this concept, I was probably in my late 20s. I was not a very good entrepreneur, and I definitely didn't have a wealth mindset. I remember sitting in my office just completely baffled as to how customers pay money. And I remember kind of going through and going, well, what are the last 10 things that I've bought? Why did I buy something? Because I was finding it so difficult to get anyone to buy my stuff. And so I knew that it was going to take me time to build that wealth mindset. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not like an epiphany. It takes time. You need to see the way other people make money, and you need to see how it can work for you. But building a wealth network, you can do straight away. And understanding that, as we've talked about earlier on, people will join your network not because of you, but because of who else is in your network. So it's a really easy, whatever your situation in life is, whatever your background, wherever you currently are, you can build a very powerful wealth network just by leveraging off other people. And the more people you get in, the more powerful it becomes, and the more people want to be a part of that wealth network. As you build that wealth network, as you start to hear what other deals people are doing, as you start to share deals and see how other people make money, so your own wealth mindset will grow from that as well. So let me know if any of that resonates with you. Give us a drop a message in the forum. Let us know where you are in terms of your wealth network and in terms of your wealth mindset. And let's just keep focused on building as many connections as we can. And also not just your own wealth network around your particular niche, but also make sure that you're connecting to everybody else in the Guild network, because that's going to be the most powerful network you belong to.